Hello, my name is Ray Cole, a product architect at BMC Software. I would like to give a brief introduction to the Workflow wiZard project in 10 minutes or less. What is the Workflow wiZard project? It is a way of developing workflows for OSMF. At the heart of it is a program that reads a set of workflow templates along with a property file. The program determines which steps are needed based upon conditional statements within these templates and generates a workflow XML file that OSMF can use. This was developed to solve some problems that we had in developing complex workflows. In our case, we needed something that could help us deliver workflow steps to configure our products. Therefore, we needed a tool that would make it easy for multiple teams to contribute to the workflow. This was accomplished by having the tool read in files that represent workflow steps so that the workflow can be broken down into distinct files so multiple developers would not be editing a single XML file. It needed to be easy to integrate into existing source control systems. It needed to understand prerequisite steps in a deep manner. It needed to be able to compensate for prerequisite steps that may not end up in the workflow. For example, a step may have a prerequisite for all steps that set up a web server and for all steps that set up some DB2 objects in a DB2 database. However, if the web server steps are not needed, and therefore not included in the workflow, then the workflow creation process needed to be flexible enough to handle those missing prerequisite steps and adjust for them automatically. We needed a way to generate multiple steps from a single template. So if a step needs to be performed for multiple DB2 subsystems, then multiple steps could easily be generated for each subsystem. We needed a way to reduce syntax errors in the resulting XML, as chasing down syntax errors can take time. By having a tool generate the XML, such syntax errors are greatly reduced and problems can be found during workflow generation rather than during workflow execution. And finally, we needed to integrate some level of velocity scripting, but without having each developer learn velocity in depth. Here's a sample template. As you can see, the template is fairly easy to read. We give it a title. We tell it what prerequisites must be completed, if any. We can conditionally include the step based upon evaluation of an expression that utilizes property file inputs. We tell it the type of step, in this case JCL, but it could be any instruction-only step, Rex, shell script, etc. It's very easy to read and understand. Here's another example where iteration is performed on a property to emit some lines. In this case, it iterates across a property called myList and only processes those entries that have an out value of APF. This for each is processed by the workflow generator itself. Here's an example of a prompt definition. A template that has type prompt can define multiple prompts. If the value of a prompt is requested, the workflow generator emits the appropriate statements to prompt the user for the value. My port is being defined as an integer value with a default of 9300. And you can see where it must fall within the minimum and maximum range specified. So recall the JCL sample. It referenced my port. Because of this, the workflow generator knows that the workflow user needs to be prompted for the value, and so it sets up a prompt. We'll see that when we show this example in the workflow. Running the generator is straightforward. Here is sample JCL. One or more template datasets are passed to it along with a property file and a location to generate the workflow. Multiple template statements are treated in a manner similar to concatenation to allow local overrides of templates for the purpose of development. So for example, you might have a production set of templates and a development set of templates, and you would want your development set of templates to override the production set during normal development cycles. The property file is like any other property file you've seen. Here you can see the setup of myList that was being iterated earlier. Similar examples are included in the project for you to examine in more detail. So we run the generator and workflow XML is generated. After telling OSMF to create a workflow from the XML, which is effectively importing the XML, you can see the steps that are generated and you can see that prerequisite chains have been created. Let's take a look at the step associated with the first template that iterated over my list. You can see that it shows sum.dsn1 and sum.dsn2. That's as we predicted, looking at the property file. Now let's look at the JCL step that used myPort, which had been defined as a prompt. You can see that the generator detected myPort was referenced, and it emitted the appropriate XML to prompt the user for myPort. The workflow's velocity substitution was then able to replace myPort with the value the user entered, in this case 9300. Because of this, you could have multiple steps that need the same value but are not always included in a workflow. You do not have to worry about setting up the prompt for the first step that makes a reference to myPort. The workflow generator does this for you. This project is intended to include a template editor so that templates can be edited within Zoe, and perhaps even call the workflow generator directly from Zoe. The proposed editor would make it easier to quickly develop and test templates with syntax checking to help make sure the templates themselves do not contain syntax issues. And of course, there's always room for enhancement to the workflow generating code. It does not support every single workflow feature yet, just the portions that we needed when we initially developed it. You can find the project on GitHub. It includes documentation on the template syntax, some sample templates, and so forth. And if you have any additional questions that aren't answered today, or you would like to help contribute to the project, I encourage you to reach out to me. Again, my name is Ray Cole at BMC Software. My email address is ray_cole@bmc.com. Thank you, and we'll now go to our question and answer portion of this presentation.